Hi, everybody. This is Dana Stengel, and this is Teranga Ranch. And welcome to today's program on rattlesnakes. Today, we're going to be, hi, everybody on Facebook. We're doing it two different places today. It's crazy. We've got Facebook Live and we've got YouTube going, so this is very exciting. This is our weekly kids show. We do this at 3 o'clock on Tuesdays, and today we're going to be talking about rattlesnakes. If you got to see the thumbnail yet, I don't know if you did, but this is our guy. We just got this guy in. He is a Folkmanus rattlesnake. And he actually rattles. Isn't that the coolest thing you've seen this week? You know that it is. Look, and not only does he have fangs, right? But he's got this really cool forked tongue. And we are going to talk about that in a few minutes. So this is one of our new friends, and I'm very excited about it. So again, I'm Dana Stengel. This is Teranga Ranch, and today we are talking about rattlesnakes with kids and whoever else is paying attention. I'm wearing my super fun cactus earrings today in support of our 4-part series on the desert. And because, unfortunately, I do not have cool rattlesnake earrings, so the cactus is just going to have to represent today. That's how we're rolling. All right, so for a little bit of perspective, last week we covered this book. We talked about the Cactus Hotel, and it was super cool. And we learned all about how the saguaro is a home to wildlife when it's alive for about 150 years, and also after it dies for a super long time. So that was a really cool story. And we learned about a plant that was are you ready for it? Keystone species, right? It affects so many other species around it. It's so cool. All right, so, and this was one of our vocabulary words from last week, wasn't it? Yes, it was. So this week, well, and let me just give you a little preview. Next week, it's going to be Creatures of the Desert World, which is a National Geographic Society publication. It's a pop-up book, but it's like super duper amazing. And we are going to be covering things that are a little bit deeper than what you find in your average pop-up book. And then the week after that will be our 4th part in the series, where we will be talking about desert life, and we will be answering about 20 of the 101 questions about desert life, right? So that's my story for now. And today, the moment you've been waiting for, the reason you showed up, we are going to be talking about this super amazing book. I love this book. It is called Rattlesnake Dance. It is by Jennifer Owings Dewey, and it's a really good mix. You know, I love it when an author can combine science and folklore, and this author does just that in this book. So, and if you know me and you know that I love books, you know that I love Coyote America, which is another book that combines folklore and actual history. I love it when I do that. So this one is actually a story about a little girl who gets bit by a rattlesnake. So spoiler alert, she's going to get bit by a rattlesnake, right? But spoiler alert again, she's going to be okay. All right, she's going to be okay. She's going to make it. So, but she's going to tell her story. And so people can learn a little bit about rattlesnakes this way, right? So, and Rattlesnake Dance, what? Wait a minute. Excuse me, sir. Do rattlesnakes dance? Not like that. Apparently they do dance, but not like that. Okay, well, thank you for that information. All right, now to the actual story. I know. All right, so we've got some Hopi Native American symbolism going on right here. Beautiful. Spoiler alert, we're going to talk about the Hopi. Okay. True tales, mysteries, and rattlesnake ceremonies. Oh, I love rattlesnake ceremonies, especially when nobody dies. Please don't die. Please don't have a rattlesnake ceremony. You'll learn why. All right. So this table of contents has 3 sections to this book: snake bite, Hopi snake ceremonies, and the rattlesnake dance. So we're not going to cover the whole book, but we're just going to cover bits of it. My favorite parts, actually. That's my favorite part about doing this. We can just cover my favorite parts, right? This is a super cool map of the United States that basically tells you where the different rattlers live, who lives where, right? Like, for example, in Los Angeles, there are lots of people that swear they saw a Mojave green rattler. But in the LA area, you're probably more likely to only see a Southern Pacific rattler. And they're different kinds of snakes, and they behave a little bit differently, so it's good to know. So anyway, this little map kind of shows you who's where. All right, snake bite. I really like this because there's a super cool picture here of what rattlesnake fangs look like, right? So they're basically like hypodermic needles. And when they puncture the skin, the venom is released into whatever animal it is. And these snakes are called pit vipers. Where is today's vocabulary? Today's vocabulary has our word, which is, and I keep putting my hand in my mouth, don't do that, okay? In this day of pandemic plague, don't put your hands in your mouth. Don't be like me. Pit viper. So a rattlesnake is a pit viper. And around his mouth, we're going to look at his mouth again. They're not going to show it in this particular picture, but they are going to show it later. Around his lips. And on this guy, I can show it to you on this guy. Right in this area right there, he has what's called heat pits. And what will happen is he doesn't even have to see. He can sense the heat of the prey and use that to get his prey, to get his food. That's how he eats. So we always think of rattlesnake fangs as, oh, aren't those things that are just coming to get humans? Like, no, the reason they have fangs is because that's how they eat their dinner. And let's just take a minute and talk about that. So another one of, I did it again. Oh my gosh, I'm going to put change in a jar every single time I am trying to work with paper and I put my finger in my mouth. Oh my goodness. Okay, you guys. And the writing is backwards. Thank you, Tracy. All right. Well, I'm thinking that on YouTube it isn't, so I'm going to keep holding it up for YouTube, but not as long as I usually do. Sorry about that, you guys. Thank you for letting me know. Inject. Okay, so today we're going to talk about venom, right? And venom gets injected through those hypodermic needle teeth, right? And if you're a snake, either you have venom or you are a constrictor. What? I know. Constrictors don't need venom. They just squeeze their prey until it can't breathe anymore, and then they eat it. Whereas an animal that has venom has to follow their prey around until it dies, and then it eats it. I know, this is a crazy story, but it's true. But you don't need to be afraid, because what do snakes usually eat? Well, they usually eat rodents, and they sometimes eat other reptiles, right? So every now and then, if a human comes into contact with them on accident, they might bite because they're trying to defend themselves. But one thing to know about that is they're not trying to do that. They're not aggressive, right? They're not like, ooh, if a person is coming, I'm going to show them who's boss. They're not like that, because what happens is after they inject their venom into their prey or whoever it is they're defending themselves against, guess what? Now they don't have as much venom. No. So now if they need to get a meal, it's going to take them a little longer. They're at a little bit of a disadvantage. So they're not trying to use their venom. And one myth, I've heard people say, well, Dana, if it's a baby rattler, does it have less venom? Or I've had people say the exact opposite. What if, Dana, what if it's a really, really big one? Will it have a lot of extra venom? Or because it's an adult, will it be able to control its venom? The answer to that is we don't need to be worried about that. If we were to get bit by a snake, we would just get to the hospital no matter what. And any rattlesnake, whether he's big or small, could be dangerous. And we should never try to interact with a rattlesnake, whether you're an adult, whether you're a child, whether you're a person with a stick. You should just never interact with, and if you're not sure, which most of the time you're not going to be, you should just not interact with a snake because he's busy trying to do his thing, which is either try to get warm or get a meal. And anything we do with them is probably disrupting their day a little bit, right? All right, well, let's get back to our story here. We've got the rattlesnake dance. We're talking about snake bite. And basically, she says, when I was 9 years old, I climbed up a cliff face and I reached over my head for a grip on the ledge. And that is exactly what can happen when people get bit by a snake. In fact, most of the time that someone gets bit by a snake is when they have put their hand or their foot or some other appendage, whatever, they're reaching or stretching over an area they cannot see first. So it's important to be able to see where you're going. If you're hiking or whatever, and there's a big log in your way, step up on the log, look over the log. Don't just walk right over that log like you know what's on the other side of it, unless you can actually see it. Because sometimes snakes feel like, oh, I'm all by myself. I'm just going to lay here and catch some rays and nobody's around. And maybe you were super quiet and they didn't feel that you were coming because they feel the vibration in the ground of your footsteps, right? Maybe they didn't know until it was too late and you were already there and they couldn't move quickly enough, right? That could happen. So in this case, I think that's what did happen. She's climbing, she can't see where she's putting her hand, and bam, she gets bit by a snake. So what does she do? I love the artistry in this book. It's so beautiful. She is on her horse, and she is able to get back up on her horse, and her horse just knows what to do, thankfully, and just brings her home. And then this little box is interesting. It says, some venoms have a gyrotoxic effect. That is a really fun word. I can't even remember the last time I saw or heard that word, gyrotoxic, right? That means that the animal is doing what you see in this picture, which is that dance of death, where they're all, I'm all poisoned, I'm woo. Gyrotoxic effect, right? Take that to the bank with you. There you go. There's your word of the week, gyrotoxic effect. As long as we're talking about toxins, I wanted to bring up a couple of kinds of toxins that we talk about when we talk about rattlesnakes, especially in my area. We have chemotoxic rattlesnakes and we have neurotoxic rattlesnakes. I know, crazy big words, craziness, but I'm going to tell you easily what they mean, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I don't even know why they use such big words for that, because it's very easy. So chemotoxic means that when the venom enters your system, it's going to use your bloodstream and go throughout your body and wreak its havoc, right? And it's going to be bad. And if you live in Southern California, our Southern Pacific rattler, this is the kind of venom he has. Now, there's another kind, and that's neurotoxic. Now, some of the snakes that live in the Mojave Desert, they're neurotoxic. And I'm not going to say because I am not 100% positive which ones are which, but like Mojave Green, pretty sure. Not 100% though. Don't quote me on that. And that's why they're a little, this toxin affects your nervous system, right? That's where your brain and your spinal cord are. This is very serious business, and it's worse. So that's my story. That's the long and the short of it. All right. And while I'm sitting here looking at my vocabularies really quickly, vocabulary words, venom and poison. These are not necessarily the same thing, right? So venom can be poison, right? Like if the snake has venom inside of him, he is biting somebody, he's not poisoning them. They have to pick up poison. They have to ingest poison. So I know this is crazy, but venom is injected. And I remember that because the venom comes out of a fang like a hypodermic needle, right? And poison is ingested. And so they're a little bit different. So that's important to know. All right. So, and the other thing I like about this box is it's got a picture, it's got a close-up of that rattlesnake, and you can see his heat pits. That's where his heat pits are, and that is how he is sensing heat. So he doesn't even need to see because his senses, I think as humans, we start to think that all animals experience the world like we do, right? We do a lot of our experiencing with our eyes, but animals are pretty incredible, and they are often using other senses way more strongly than they're using their eyes, right? When I think of any animal with an elongated nose, with a long snout, there's a lot going on in that nose. There's a reason why that's protruding like that, right? So he's using smell like all day long, right? I'm barely using smell. I hope I'm not using smell half the time, right? Okay, back to snakes. All right. So she gets home and she tells her dad, and then they take her to the hospital, which is exactly what should happen. So people often ask me, like, what should I do if I get bit by a snake? Should I start sucking on it? No, don't do that. Don't put your mouth, you're going to just get it. All you want to do is get to the hospital. That's what you want to do as soon as you can, and they will take care of you. That's what you need to do. Don't sit there and wait because you're afraid your blood will start pumping too quickly. Just get help. That's what you need to do. That's the safest thing to do. So, now here in this box, they're talking about how rattlesnakes blend into their environment. That's called camouflage. I should have had that as a vocabulary word. So a lot of times snakes are there, right there where you are, and you don't even know it. If they didn't make a noise, you wouldn't even have ever known they were there. So it's really good to be observant while you're walking so that you can see these things before it's too late. And that's about that. Let's see. Now she's still on her way to the hospital here. And here they're talking about creating anti-venom and creating other medicines from the venom of snakes. And so they use this little process here called milking them. They're not milking them. There's no milk involved. This is a reptile. But they will, they know how to safely hold their head in such a way that the fang drips the venom into these tubes, and then they use it to create the anti-venom, which is what she's going to get. When she goes to the hospital and they're like, oh, she's got a snake bite, they're going to give her anti-venom. Oh my gosh, I did it again. Anti-venom. That's what they're going to give her at the hospital, and that is going to help her get better. Is she still going to suffer with some swollen limbs and stuff? And is it going to be ugly for a little while? Yes, it is. But is she going to survive and live to tell the tale? Yes, she is. All right. So, what else is interesting here? Oh, okay. So this was interesting. Rattlesnake venom is similar to saliva in humans. Spit, right? What's that wet stuff in your mouth? It's saliva. What's that wet stuff in the snake's mouth? So it's similar to saliva, except that it's very, very concentrated. I know, and you think saliva is like nothing, right? But saliva is something. It has lots of acids, and it is actually one of the beginning steps in your digestive system. And the venom is an important part of the snake's digestive process too, because it's already pre-digesting the food for him, right? It's breaking it down. All right. So she has been bit by a prairie rattler, and they don't have any anti-venom. And so she is just going to have to suffer through and hope for the best. And so that's what she does over the next few weeks. She heals. And this is a really cool diagram that shows you how their tooth is like a hypodermic needle. And then this is a sacred plant that they used to use to back in the olden days when they didn't have another way to deal with snake bites. So that's what they did. That is the Yucca Spines, which we still have here in the LA area. And if you've ever been hiking, you certainly know how pointy they are. They would use that to help them. I don't recommend doing that. Okay. And then here she is, she's talking about some stories that have to do with snakes. So a lot of times, like I was telling you before about the amount of venom a little snake versus a big snake has, you know, the word will just get around and nobody's really paying attention to the facts anymore. And so sometimes these stories take their own life, right? Their own spin, and they become a thing. But these are stories that are not true. For example, they're saying there was an old-time folk remedy for snake bite was snakeweed. They said if you made the tea and drank it or applied it to the wound, it would help with the snake bite. So I don't know about that. I'm not sure I would trust it right now. And this is kind of cool. This is a fact. This is pharmaceutical companies use venom diluted and mixed with other chemical compounds to make medications for humans. So this stuff is really powerful and really cool and really interesting, and snakes can help us in a variety of ways. All right, so she lost consciousness for a few days. That's pretty scary. She's at home and they're helping her, and she couldn't feel her fingertips or her toes. And then she was going to get some skin grafts because her skin was all messed up. So they had to take some healthy skin from another part of her body and put it there so it could heal. That's one thing they do because it will swell. It's not fun. And then, oh, here she is recovering. Well, she looks like we do during the quarantine, doesn't she? She's sitting in her backyard on a lawn chair reading her book. I love it. So she's resting and she's getting her strength back. Oh, these are some interesting folk tales, folklore. Dust from a rattlesnake's rattle will blind you if you get it in your eyes, while rattles carried in a hat band will prevent a headache. What do you think? Rattlesnake rattles kept inside a fiddle or violin keep the strings from drying out. What do you think about that? I don't know. And a rattlesnake skin, along with its skeleton, sewn into an old sock and wrapped about the neck will ward off colds and sore throats. I don't think so. Yeah, this book is reminding me of some of this craziness, even right now. All right. Some people have believed that rattlesnakes are capable of charming a bird right out of the sky. Do you think that's true? Hopi snake ceremonies. So this is telling the tale of a big kind of rattlesnake that lives in Texas. The eastern diamondback gets to be 8 feet long. That's pretty big. And oh, here they are. I like this one. Here we are talking about the rattles on the tail. You see that? And some people think that you can tell how old a rattler is by how many rattles are on his tail. Okay, so number one, don't ever get close enough to count the rattles on a rattler's tail. You shouldn't know. That's his business. Number two, as they are, living their life, they go over rocks, they go over trees. Sometimes one of these little buttons, each little piece is called a button, one of them will fall off. So you can't really tell for sure. You can't go by that. A very mature snake could have lost his rattle. And another thing, in the Southern California area, I was telling you about our Southern Pacific rattlesnake. He apparently is rattling less and less. Apparently, it's becoming easier and easier to walk by him without him even rattling at you, without even him letting you know that he's there. And because I think that it's not been good for rattlesnakes who rattle, because when they do, someone knows they're there and then they try to hurt them. So that's an interesting thing that we're learning in LA. And then here's the Hopi, and they have this ceremony. And part of the ceremony involves someone handling a rattlesnake. And like I said before, never a good idea. The only rattlesnake that's safe to handle is this guy. He's the only one. Shake, 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 shake. Okay. And the person in this ceremony actually gets bit every time they do the ceremony. And so the mystery is, how do they not die from the venom? And nobody knows. That is a mystery that the Hopi carry with them. We don't know. But again, that is not something we try at home. Now, this is a close-up of the fang of a rattlesnake. You can see that it's hollow because that's where the venom is going to go through. And then you can see him here. That's a diagram of him eating his food. So they swallow their prey whole, and their jaws can unhinge and expand around their prey. So that's, at the end of the day, when we wonder why there are rattlers, all around us or in our areas, it's because we have rodents, and that's what they're there for. They're there to eat the rodents. They're not there to bite us. We just need to stay out of their way. Here's a picture of that process I was telling you about, where the rattlesnake is milked and they put his fangs into the cup and they get the venom out. Doesn't look like fun for the snake, does it? I don't think so. And here is a picture of a rattlesnake swimming. They can swim. So. And next, this box talks about the enemies of the rattler. And one of these is the owl. He'll come and get him. One of them is the road runner. Who's this guy? The eagle, sure. And then I guess there are pigs in a lot of places, not where we are. That's not an issue we have to deal with, but it's definitely an issue for many people that they have to deal with. And then we're getting to the final chapter, which is the Rattlesnake Dance. Oh my goodness, we've been talking for a half an hour, you guys. I can't believe it. Look at that picture. Can you imagine, what would you even do if you saw snakes doing this in real life? What would you do? Oh my goodness, what are they doing? What is a rattlesnake dance? Here is another awesome picture. Basically, this is two males fighting for dominance. That's what's going on. And they're going to wrestle, and they're going to wrestle around until one of them wins and one of them loses. And the loser will leave, and the winner gets a girlfriend. Right? I know. I know. I want to see it too. That would just a snake wrestling match. Seriously. Nature provides entertainment, my friends. Okay. And so apparently that went on for 2 hours. A 2-hour wrestling match. And what else? Okay. So this is the last picture. Obviously, the hero of our story survived. And here's what she says. She says, rattlesnakes are fascinating animals. They inspire awe, fear, curiosity, and nearly endless speculation. How do the Hopi handle deadly snakes with no ill effects? How do male rattlesnakes know what moves to make when they dance? And how did I survive snakebite as a child? I'll probably never know the answers to these questions. Rattlesnakes remain as mysterious and amazing to me now as they were to our ancestors of long ago, and as they were to me as a child. So that was this amazing book. And you know, I was thinking about one of my friends. I was thinking about someone I knew personally when I was reading this story to you. And I was like, you know, I would like to introduce you to this friend of mine who I was reminded of when I learned about the rattlesnake today. All right, so bear with me. I know you're like, what is she doing over there? Why is she so secretive? Why can't I see her face? What is going on? Well, my friends, I'm going on a snake hunt. What? I know. But I told you that I wouldn't handle a rattlesnake, didn't I? I'm going to handle something even cooler than a rattlesnake. What? Yes. It's Joan Baez. And she is a California king snake. What? Why am I pulling out a California king snake when we're talking about rattlesnakes? Well, this local beauty, and I mean local beauty, is from this area, and this is a king snake. And the reason that she's called a king snake is because she can eat a rattlesnake. She is immune to rattlesnake venom. And in the wild, she actually prefers reptiles to mammals if she's having lunch. So, and you may have seen her on Facebook before because she is a very sweet, non-aggressive snake, and she loves to come out and say hi. And she is a true icon of California as far as I'm concerned. And do they have king snakes in other places other than California? Yes, they do. Do they all look just like this? Not necessarily. So this is the California banded king snake. And this is how she rolls. So that is my story. I thought it would be exciting to bring a live friend. Oh, we have another one. Look, my cat's here to say hi to you too. Hi. Hi, Snowflake. So it's a real menagerie here at Teranga Ranch. And I had so much fun today talking about snakes with you. So, quiz. If you see a rattlesnake, should you start poking at it with a stick? If you see a rattlesnake, should you run and get a rake? If you see a rattlesnake, should you say to yourself, "Ooh, sign of a healthy ecosystem. I think I will step back and I will let an adult know." Yes. Winning. Hashtag winning. So anyway, guys, I had so much fun. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be back on next Tuesday at 3 o'clock on YouTube talking about more desert stuff. It's going to be part 3 of the desert series, and I am very excited about it. And so is Joan Baez. So that's our story for today. Thank you guys so much for joining us. See you soon.